Eric Thomas here for Irish Illustrated. We're doing another episode of our sponsor Spotlight. I'm here with Paul Kamish. He's an artist. He's got connections to Notre Dame and sort of has centered that in his art. I want to make sure I allow him to kind of speak on that background. Paul, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about your background as an artist.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Paul. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I've been an artist since I was a kid. My father was an Air Force pilot, so we traveled a lot, but we got into art very early. And so, I remember going to a museum when I was just a little kid, drawing and starting that. So I've always been sort of hooked on it. And then I went to school, and I'm not a Notre Damer, but I did go to St. Thomas. And St. Thomas and Notre Dame are very, they're like brother sister schools. The campuses are very similar. There's and they do have a connection, but anyway, I have been in art for a long time, and then I went into the caricature business, and so we did that for a long time, and we were at theme parks. We were out in California at SeaWorld, and then we have a big mall here in Minneapolis, and so we did this for a long time, and then I got into sculpture. And I had a friend that went to Notre Dame, and he said, "Hey, we should do a series of these." And so that's one of the things that I did do in the sculpture arena was the Spirit Collection. It was the four, I think, most important parts of Notre Dame. We picked the dome, of course, and the basilica, and the grotto, and then the famous Four Horsemen, of course, was the fourth piece. And those were all given to different people. So we gave one to Father Jenkins, and Father Hesper got the grotto, of course. And that was great to meet him. He was a fantastic guy. And so I got to spend a little bit of time with him. And then the Four Horsemen we presented to a fellow named Chuck Lennon. And it actually hangs at the X Center today, so I'm quite proud of that piece. And I know a lot of people have seen that over the years.
Excellent. Well, obviously, having that connection on Notre Dame campus is always kind of that exciting piece. And I think for us, that was a big part of the initial draw. Obviously, you're someone who's already connected to the community. You're someone who has invested time into understanding kind of the important facets, right, of what's important to the Notre Dame folks. I want to talk about some of your work here. I know sculpture is a big part of your background, but I actually want to start with the print behind you. Obviously this year is kind of a bigger project for you. We'll dive into that, but the print is sort of like I don't know if it's the origin of that, but it's kind of like this first stepping piece for this larger project. So tell me a little bit about the print.
Yeah, so I, getting involved with Notre Dame, as I said, I'm not from there, but if you go there and you go on campus, you become infatuated with this place. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. You can explain it to people, but there's nothing like it. When you get on campus, you're hooked, especially if you're there on game day, right? And so when we were doing the Spirit Collection, I did spend a lot of time there. And so I'm a Subway alumni. I mean, but I'm in love with Notre Dame in that sense. And so knowing that the 100-year anniversary of that famous 1924 championship win was coming around, I had this idea to put a story together about that. And so the idea was to do sort of a chronological snapshot in time of their season. So think about this, 1924. And so I did a ton of research on this just to sort of see what we're talking about. What was happening then was incredible. I mean, radio had just started, right? I mean, they had just started radio. These are things that we can't even imagine now. But it was the Roaring 20s. It was sort of that great Gatsby era. Very cool, romantic. And Rhapsody in Blues was the main, the top hit of the year. Calvin Coolidge was president. And so all these different things, I started to get into this and started to sort of study and understand what they were doing. And I said, we got to do a piece on this. And so I was thinking really big, and I was thinking monumental. I was thinking a 24-foot sculpture. And so I have a friend, his name is Paul Day, and he's done some amazing pieces. He's a British guy, but he did the Battle of Britain, and it was this long mural, three-dimensional mural, like a lot of it popping out into 3 dimension and back to a high relief. And I'm thinking that would look really cool, taking this whole idea. And so that's sort of what I did. And I started on the left and moving forward to the right, and started with Notre Dame in this small little town community, this small little school. We got Father Soren in there, who was an amazing dude in and of himself, just to come to nowhere and put this amazing school together. And then we've got the dome and the basilica. And so as I sort of went through this whole series, I was just digging in deeper and deeper, and started to understand Newt Rockne and some of the things that he was doing. This strategic guy, I mean, he really was bringing new things to the forefront.
Mhm.
And we'll show the picture up here of the different things. We've got the forward pass, and it wasn't Newt Rockne didn't invent it, but he certainly was instrumental in bringing it to the forefront. I mean, and they started using it. So think about this. They played Army, and they had been playing Army. I mean, this is the powerhouse. These guys were like the team to beat. Everyone that was going to school was looking, how do I get to Army? So they had the biggest and the best. And this little team, and these guys were not big. I mean, I'm reading here the different weights of these guys, and the heaviest dude and the biggest dude was Elmer Layden. He was 6 feet
Oh
and
my God.
160 pounds, right?
Unbelievable difference, right?
So it was a different era, and it was a different look. But these guys played with heart, and the things that I've read about that team was incredible. But as we move through the piece, I tried to get in the era as much as I wanted to make it about football. It was really about the whole era. And I've got New York, and can you imagine the eyes on these kids? And everything was done by train, going to New York and seeing these huge skyscrapers back at the time, and the subways and so on. And so I tried to add that into the piece. There's in front here, there's a mother's hands, and I wanted to get that, and it's the praying mothers, the Irish praying mothers. I spoke with a fellow who was an heir of Harry Struldreher, and he told me that a lot of the players actually were German. But that aside, there was a lot of prejudice back then. Back in that era, being Irish was, it was not good. And then to top it off and be Catholic. So, they in the proximity, they were supposed to be in the Big Ten, apparently, but no one wanted them, right? And so they became this sort of national team that went to New York. And, that year they traveled from the West Coast to the East Coast and everywhere in between. And so it was pretty fascinating to really study this. And so I started to put this on paper, and we move on into the third section of the print. And this all was a study. So I wanted to do a study first, kind of lay it out, see how this would look. And that's sort of where we're at. I've started the sculptures of a few of these pieces, but as you go to the other side of the piece here, you've got Pasadena, where they played. And, so you've got Hollywood sign and the train coming through, and the silent movies. It wasn't even real movies back then. It was silent movies until the 30s. Yeah. And then onward until our famous win in, it was actually played on January 1st of 1925. So that's sort of the flow of that piece.
That's awesome. And the depth of thought and effort that went into every component or every facet of this piece is so interesting, obviously, because there's not only just the Notre Dame connection, but there's also that prime Americana connection. There's I don't know if it's a nostalgia for folks that weren't there, but it's almost like a longing for that era gone by built into the poster. And I really appreciate that sort of outlook or perspective that you get just sort of looking at it. But talking about some of your other talents here, there's a couple other pieces behind you. One of them is very shiny, catching some eyes. Tell me a little
Yes.
bit about the statuettes behind you and the work that you do creating some of these, Notre Dame centered statuette pieces.
Yeah, so part of the spirit collection that we did, it was like I mentioned, the dome and Basilica and Grotto and the Four Horsemen. And so we got to meet a lot of people over there, and I had spent some time with the Alumni Association, but also got introduced to development. And so this was a number of years ago, but they commissioned me to do a replica of Mary. And so they were building the new offices over in Eddie Common. And so they wanted to have a 42-inch piece replica of Mary. And so this was a number of years ago, and drones weren't really the thing quite yet. And so I worked from photographs, but a lot of them were from below, and there were a few when they had gilded the dome. So there were a few references, but it was a challenge to sort of piece it together, but I think it turned out quite well. But there were some interesting things that most people that have visited the campus or have spent time there or alumni, a lot of them don't know. There are a couple things here. There's a serpent head that she's stepping on, and it's turned kind of looking straight up at her. And what's really interesting about it, this was done in like the late 1800s. It was a second version of it too. But the snake has ears on it, which is kind of interesting. And then there are these two, I call them horns, but they're actually the crescent moons. So she's sitting on the globe, and they're the crescent moons that kind of sit. And so they're hard to see it from ground level, but that's what it is. Anyway, so I had done that, and the one sits at in the development office, and then there's another version that sits in the long hallway at the Morris Inn. If you've been there, you'll have seen it. It's pretty pronounced there. And so it was quite an honor to have done that. And so from that, a lot of people were going like, I'd love to have one. So I actually did a miniature of this. And so there's a couple different versions, and we've done them in bronze, and we've done them in a resin. And so there's some different price points. But I do take the time to, on the premium ones and the resin one as well, to put 23.75 karat gold. And it's fussy to work with, but when it's on, it is brilliant. And so there's sort of nothing like it. You can't replicate it with paint or anything like that. So
Absolutely. Well, there's Notre Dame folks love their gold. It's a big part of the identity there, and I think that the careful application of something like that to make sure that it matches up with the identity, it just shows the level of thought that you're putting into the follow through on these. Excellent. And then I think is that Father Soren behind you?
So I had another request, and people were saying, I would love a Father Soren. So I did that as well. And I got to know him quite well too. Whenever you take on these projects, you dig in, and you have to research and, get the personality as well as the look. And so, yes, this was the replica of that one that stands in the courtyard there. And another superstar right here. I mean, what a powerhouse. But that one sits on, I don't have it on the base, but it sits on a stone base that says Soren. And so it's got that sort of nostalgic look to it as well. And so this comes in bronze and resin as well. And then it comes in 3 different colors. I've seen it in 3 different colors. And so that's why we decided to match that: a green, verdi green, and a black, and then this sort of golden brown.
Absolutely. And look, we've been talking for a number of weeks now about this partnership and kind of the way that we wanted to take this. And I know that we on the Irish Illustrated side are really excited about the opportunity to work with not only someone else who's sort of creative minded, right? A lot of this is all just creative exercise and showing off that muscle a little bit, but someone who has that connection to Notre Dame. They're invested in the campus, the community, the culture. That's something that I know that we really appreciate. Before we wrap up here, Paul, I know that there is a sort of a larger 1924 project angle that that you're seeing a grand picture, that as an artist, there's always kind of that big connection. You talked about the larger three-dimensional print sort of concept here and how that led to the print behind you. Tell me, kind of last thing here, just a little bit about your vision for what this project could end up looking like and what it means to you to see this thing through.
Right. So, the high ambition, was to get started. All of this stuff can be done. It needs support. It needs interest behind it and funding. To do a piece that huge, 24 feet in bronze, would be phenomenal. It would be highly expensive, and it would take a lot of time and manpower, not just me, but a vision to kind of take it all the way through. So I decided that the first thing that had to be done was to do this drawing, and so that was paramount before we could even move forward. And it's hard to, from coming from conceptual idea, it's hard to even explain it. I mean, we can talk about it all day, but unless you see it, it's hard to visualize. And so this was the first point. I've now finished this, and I've started to do the sculpture. So the next vision is to do a miniature, which miniature means about 8 feet.
Mhm.
Once that's done, there's so much great technology now that we can take and scan these to a degree that it's insane how detailed you can get. And so, but the next goal, this would be phase 2 of phase 3, is to get the miniature done. And so it's basically going to take some time and a little bit of funding, but mainly focus, right? And so one of the ideas that I had to get it to the second phase, to get this maquette, as I call it, done, is to try to start getting some people behind it. And that's why I'm so happy that we've connected and that we can work together to sort of work not only on some of the pieces that you see here, which are all available on the site, and we'll talk about the codes that they can use, Irish, for some discounts, but to try to offer this as a way to move this project forward to phase 2. Ideas happen when people get behind it, and ideas happen when you stay focused on it. So one of the offers that we'd like to do for the entire season and through the year is to offer this print. So now on my site, we're selling this for $150, and it's on a really high archival paper, and it's printed very nicely. But what we're trying to do is to have it be a donation. So I think if we can get 10,000 people to say, you know what, I'd love to donate $99 to kind of move this thing forward, and it's for the cause, it would help this get not only through phase 2, but well into phase 3. And ideas become reality when we get together and when people see the same vision. And so that's part of this idea.
Absolutely. And on that note, I know you wanted to talk about our plans and everything. That was a great place for us to close. It's a great segue. We are going to be having this partnership moving through at least through the end of the season. For us, this is a great way to engage with a Notre Dame centered or a Notre Dame image-based partner, right? There's so much that's tied here. So we will have a promo code. Paul, your website, paulkamishart.com.
No, it's paulkamish.com, but even more directly, to go to the Notre Dame specific site is Notre Dame Delac, so NotreDameDelac.com. And there's also a link to Notre Dame 1924 project. So any 3 of those will get you there, and there are tabs that you can look for. But so our first sort of rollout and offer, and this will be available through the entire year, is to use promo code IRISH when you're checking out, and you will get a 15% discount on anything that you're buying in the store. And then, like we talked about, Eric, we will be offering every week or 10 days a new promotion for the different pieces. Like I said, I just finished a new Rockney piece, which I'm very pleased with. So I actually did 2 different sculptures of Newt Rockney, and this this is actually for the prototype for the pieces. So we're actually moving forward on this, but I have him as the coach over here, and it's the bust of this part here. And then I have him sort of as the Statesley representative, and the guy who really offered so much to the game of football, and of course Notre Dame.
Absolutely. Well, awesome. No, I'm really excited about the rotating plans that we have to bring new products and new discounts to people to let them engage with what you've created. Obviously, promo code Irish, which we will include in the description, as well as all the links and everything, will be a running promotion, 15% off. So if you're interested in the print, you want to make sure you're getting this stuff before, the kickoff at Texas A&M next weekend. Promo code Irish is going to be the best way to maximize your savings here in the early goings. And then just stay tuned to our social feed, stay tuned to our site. We'll be making sure to clue everybody in on the latest details and Irish Illustrated exclusive discounts. But Paul, if there's anything else before we go, is there anything else you want to throw out there?
No, I thank you for the interview, and also for the teaming up. I think this will be a fun season. We're hoping to get there and to show the piece and to show the ideas that we're doing, and to do some interviewing as well there on just, the fans. I mean, when you go and that's the electricity in the air is, you can't explain it.
Absolutely.
So excited to do that as well.
Excellent. Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. I love doing these sponsor spotlight stories. For Irish Illustrated, this is Eric Thomas, and I'm signing off with Paul Kamish.